All right, this video is going to cover the basics of quantizing and try to then take it to some more advanced concepts using the quantized dialogue to make things actually feel a bit more humanistic, a bit more real. So anyways, first and foremost, I'm revisiting this idea of just some classic drum beats. And this is kind of, maybe we'd call it the Boom Bap. Well, let's actually listen to this one for a second. All right, so it's still, it covers that basic concept, or it adheres to that basic concept of snare drum on beats 2 and 4. I got some 30-second notes here for a little bit of a drum roll. I have another snare drum coming on the 4th 16th note, on the of beat 4, and kick on 1 and 3, but these are doubles, so they're 16th notes, and then on the of beat 3, it sounds like this. Okay, now, didn't want to listen to this first one because I messed it up kind of purposely. Let's give it a listen. Okay, hopefully you can hear that those hi-hats are pretty inconsistent in terms of where they're falling. The snare drums sound early, they sound late, it's all over the place. So let's take a look at that a little bit more closely and looking at the grid. So my grid is set to 16ths, and you can see this kick drum is late, this hi-hat is early, this one's late, snare drum's late, early, late, everything's a mess. You could move these things back, go into grid mode and move this back. I'm not going to lie, I often find myself just dragging things around a little bit. But if you have a whole bunch of notes, or if you typically play on a keyboard or some kind of a MIDI controller that's inputting your notes, you're going to have some errors. Some of which are good because they sound human, and some of them are just too far off and they need to be fixed. So we're going to learn how to quantize. So if we highlight all these clips, we can either drag and select them all, or Command A or Control A, depending on your Mac PC. We're going to come up to Event and Event Operations and open the Quantize dialog. Now, quantizing basically means rounding. You're rounding the placement of these notes to the nearest grid value. And that is super, super useful. My grid, I'm going to set my grid to 16ths, but there's going to cause a problem with our 30-second notes. So I'm going to show you that. But really keep an eye on these other notes that are all 16th note values. I'm going to highlight them. What are we quantizing? We're going to quantize the note on, meaning we're paying attention to the beginning of each note and where they fall. And it preserved the note duration. We could change the note, how long it is, but these were drawn into 16ths, they're fine. And we don't need to worry about the note off. So we're going to keep it very, very simple. Note on, 16th notes. Watch as I hit apply. Okay, everything went back to its perfect robotic place except for the 30-second notes, and that is because they were 30-second notes. Therefore, one of them inherently was off by 50%. So this one either needs to move back, or, we didn't need to highlight it and quantize it. We could also have, let's move everything back to their off place. Depends how far off we are here, if 30-second notes, so just changing the value to 30 seconds and everything moved back fine. Now, if this one had been, further off, it could have been a problem. Okay, so now we have perfectly quantized MIDI notes, which just means they are on the grid, they are tied to the grid. And nothing particularly wrong with it. Oh, there was one that was off. I didn't notice this hi-hat moved. So it was more than 50% early 30-second note over a 30-second note early, so it moved up a 30-second note. Now we're fine. Okay. Static velocities. Okay, so we're gonna help this drum beat out. And we are going to help it out by first changing its velocity. So I've just copied this down here, and I went ahead and I made some velocity changes. My velocity changes had to do with wanting this first kick drum to be a bit quieter than the second, because typically when you do a double hit like that on a real drum set, that second one is just inherently louder based on how your foot lands on the pedal. I'm also making every second eighth note hi-hat a bit quieter, so you can see that there. You can also, remember that when you lower these or raise them, they change the lighter the color, the lighter, the softer the velocity, the lower the velocity. Okay, so just with some changes here, I'm going to actually change this even more. This roll wasn't sounding very realistic to me. Oh, I see what was up. Right at about 100, it really changes timbre. Let's actually make this 95. I can get it right at 95. Okay, so I have some variation in velocity. That's kind of number one in wanting to humanize these drums. Next thing is, so these already have the change velocities, although I made some distinctive changes here that aren't going to be there. Real quick. Okay, so I did get those velocities copied down. We're going to go back into the quantized dialog box to play with some other things. So first, we're going to play with this concept called swing. And swing is kind of, let's just call it feel. I will overdo the swing 150%. You can see these notes are going to shift around. And that doesn't sound real great. It seems like it's only playing with that. Oh, let me put it to 16ths. There we go. Okay, that might be swinging in some genre, but not really. Okay, so I'm going to put this back to about 20%. Somewhere below 18. All right, then I'm going to hit apply, and you can see some slight variations. Now, I got this problem. Oops. I got this problem with the 30-second note again, so I'm actually going to unclick those. All right, so we got some slight changes in the kick and snare, and let's listen, and the hi-hat. Let's listen to that. Okay, can you tell a difference? Okay, this one's definitely a little more angular. It is very precise. This one, it has pushed some of these notes a little bit late, and that is what feel is. Some of them are still very on point, and that is fine. All right, so swing. 15, 20, 25%. The next thing I want to try is what's called randomizing. Or no, I'm sorry, not randomizing. Yes, randomizing. But really it's an offset. And I'm not going to... So let's do offset first. Sorry. If I choose just the snare drum, and I say like, I kind of want to make these a little bit later, I can offset it by 10 ticks. Remember, I think there's 960 ticks. Don't quote me on that. Per quarter note. So that, I'm going to undo our 30-second notes again. So just watch where these snares go. Okay, now they're all 10 ticks later. Okay. Now with randomizing, it is going to not listen to what you have to say about 10 ticks or what. It's going to do something to all of the different highlighted notes. So this time I'm going to randomize by about 10% and see what happens. Okay, so what randomizing is doing is it is making some notes early and some notes late, which is what we're looking for to humanize. But 10% being a very small value, it's not going to throw it off to the point where you got to go, adjust your dance moves. Okay, so we went from this with a static set of velocities to this with variable velocities, some swing, some offsets, some randomizing, all different things you can do to try and humanize your drum beats.